Shalom and welcome back to Israel Komei Aline. In the past few weeks, we've seen news circulating on the internet saying that the Mount of Olives is cracking, that it is opening up. But is this really true? Today we came to the Mount of Olives to see with our own eyes what is really happening in this place. And what is the connection between these phenomena and the fulfillment of biblical prophecies and the return of Jesus? We will also find out what scientists have to say about these future phenomena. So, if you are ready, let's get started. Let's start by understanding what the Bible teaches us about the opening of the Mount of Olives. There is a very important prophecy in Zechariah 14 which says that the Mount of Olives will split, and we are going to hear it now. Behold, the day of the Lord is coming. On that day, his feet will stand on the Mount of Olives, which is in front of Jerusalem to the east. The Mount of Olives will be split in two from east to west, forming a great valley. Half of the mountain will move to the north and the other half to the south. You will flee through my valley between the mountains, because this valley will reach Azal. Yes, you will flee just as you fled from the earthquake in the days of Uzziah, king of Judah. Then the Lord my God will come, and all the saints will come with him. On that day there will be no light but cold and ice, but it will be a unique day, a day known to the Lord. There will be no separation between day and night, for even after night falls, it will still be bright as day. This will happen both in summer and in winter. The Lord will be king over all the earth. On that day, the Lord will be one, and his name will be one. As we heard, the prophecy says that the mountain will split from east to west, which is exactly this direction, and that half of the mountain will move toward the south and the other half toward the north. And right here in the middle, a great valley will open up. Indeed, these verses speak of a very grand and almost apocalyptic moment. But the question is, why is it going to happen right here on the Mount of Olives? If we look around the old city of Jerusalem, there are many hills. The Bible itself tells us, Yerushalayim arim saviv la, which means that Jerusalem is surrounded by mountains. So why does this prophecy say that out of all the hills, the Mount of Olives was chosen to be split open? That's because the Mount of Olives is connected to two very important prophecies, the first of which is related to the golden gate that we see here in front of us, the gate through which Jesus entered on Palm Sunday, and where Ezekiel's prophecy says that it is through this same place that the glory of God will return. Then the man made me return to the outer gate of the sanctuary, which faces east and was closed. And the Lord said to me, this gate will remain closed, it must not be opened. No one shall enter through it, because the Lord, the God of Israel, has entered through it. Therefore, it will remain closed. As for the prince, he will sit there, because he is the prince, to eat bread before the Lord. He will enter by way of the portico of the gate and will go out the same way. And because of this prophecy, the return of Jesus is related to his entry directly through the Golden Gate, which you can see, which was the only one of the gates in the entire Jerusalem temple complex. It led directly toward the Mount of Olives. And the second prophecy related to this place that we need to talk about is very close to us, so come walk with me. As you saw, we took a short walk from the lookout point to here, and we've already arrived at one of the most important places on the Mount of Olives. Come and see. This is the Chapel of the Ascension, the place from where Jesus ascended to heaven 40 days after the resurrection. And this is a tradition that dates back to the first Christians of the Holy Land, long before this chapel was even built. We have records of a Christian pilgrim named Egeria who visited this place in 384, and she tells how the place was open and bare in her time. But yes, it was a place of celebration and praise to Jesus and his ascension, and not long after that, a Christian woman named Poimenia helped build the first church at this site, a Byzantine church, and the remains of that church can still be seen here to this day. But the most important part of this complex is, without a doubt, its central part, which in the original construction was open to the skies. And of course, the place of Jesus' ascension makes sense that it would be open, but nowadays it is closed. We can see that there is an original rock here which has been protected since Byzantine times, since ancient times. We can clearly see that it is part of this hill, this open summit, which Egeria also tells us about. And tradition says that it is exactly this place from where Jesus ascends to heaven. The question is, what does all this have to do with future prophecies? And for that, we need to read the book of Acts. The book of Acts tells us about the ascension of Jesus and tells us that in the same way he went up, he will return. And they kept their eyes fixed on the sky as he went up. Suddenly, 2 men dressed in white appeared before them and said, "Galileans, why are you looking at the sky?" This same Jesus, who was taken up from among you into heaven, will return in the same way you saw him go up. Then they returned to Jerusalem, coming from the Mount of Olives, which is near the city, about 1 kilometer away. Because of this prophecy in Acts 1 that Jesus went and will return in the same way. It is believed that this place is the site of Jesus' ascension and also the place of his future return. And it even says that his disciples returned to Jerusalem coming from the Mount of Olives, and because of that, with the return of Jesus, he can walk from here toward the Golden Gate through the Mount of Olives. Connecting these 3 prophecies and this walk toward the Golden Gate, we will do it together now as well.
Thanks, Daddy.
I live in Jerusalem. Every day I walk these streets, the same stones and the same ground where King David walked. I'm holding soil from the Temple Mount. This was carefully rescued by archaeologists in the 90s in the Sifting Project. Temple Mount soil is the only entity authorized to verify and certify its authenticity and origin.
I'm so happy it's so beautiful and special, but beyond that, it has such deep meaning. I'm carrying with me a rare piece of history from the holiest place in Jerusalem.
It's got everything: our faith, our family, something we'll carry for generations.
I think it's a piece every Christian should own while it's still possible.
Every piece comes with a signed certificate, proving that you are among the very few who will ever own this treasure. Click the link in the description below or scan the QR code to receive your living connection to biblical history. For my followers, wherever you are, shipping is completely free. Shalom. And now, let's get back to the video. The view from here is truly breathtaking. It's something spectacular. And we can also see the path we are going to take from here. We are going to start our descent here toward the Golden Gate, and during our descent, we are going to look for the famous cracks that people talk about so much online, the physical evidence of whether or not the Mount of Olives is splitting open. There is nothing like walking here in Jerusalem and seeing the biblical reality with our own eyes. And if you are planning a trip to Israel or to another international destination, I have a very special tip to share with you. Open a Nomad account. It's an international dollar account accepted worldwide. And they help you travel in a much more practical, safe, and especially economical way. With features like dollar alerts and automatic currency exchange. And Nomad makes your trip even more wonderful right from the start because you get access to the Nomad VIP lounge in Terminal 3 of Guarulhos International Airport. It's really been worth it. So take advantage of the QR code that's here on the screen or the link in the description. Download the app and use the coupon Aline 40 to get up to $40 cash back on your first dollar purchase. So take advantage now. Meanwhile, we'll keep going together, going down the Mount of Olives.
E ele trará os santos consigo, ele irá ressuscitar os mortos. A crença judaica diz que os primeiros mortos a serem ressuscitados são aqueles que estão enterrados aqui.
Here we see a large Jewish cemetery. This cemetery is 3,000 years old and is still in use. The tombs here in the upper area are the newest, and the further down we go, the older they are. Here we have tombs of biblical figures such as Zechariah, Haggai, Malachi, one of King Solomon's wives who was the daughter of Pharaoh, and so many other people who changed the history of Israel and the Bible. The question is, why take such a privileged place with a spectacular view, the most beautiful view in all of Jerusalem, and turn it into a cemetery? All of this is also related to biblical prophecies, according to the Jewish interpretation of this same prophecy of Zechariah. If the Messiah has to come by way of the Mount of Olives and he will bring the saints with him, he will resurrect the dead. The Jewish belief says that the first to be resurrected are those who are buried here. And that's why many thousands of people are buried here waiting for this day to come.
Fechaduras, vemos até mesmo buracos aqui pelo caminho e nós vemos na internet
Looking, we see what look like these cracks in the ground which help us understand a little better the biblical geography, the geography of this prophecy. And as Zechariah says, when the feet stand on the Mount of Olives, it will be split from east to west, and the mountain will open in the middle, half to the south and half to the north. And right here, right in front of me, we see the Golden Gate. Then we see the direct connection from the place of the Ascension, the return, and it's this whole path which will be a great valley all the way to the entrance at the Golden Gate.
Zacarias, bem pelo contrário, o que os especialistas descobriram aqui nas últimas décadas.
The prophecy is very clear about the fact that the Mount of Olives will literally split. And when we walk here, we see these cracks, we even see holes along the way. And we see on the internet several people claiming that all of this is connected to the fulfillment of this prophecy. However, unfortunately, experts believe that this has nothing to do with earthquakes or with land movements or the opening of the Mount of Olives. Instead, this is simply the poor maintenance that was done here on the Mount of Olives. Especially in these last few years when we had the pandemic and the war in Israel. So there is no deep crack that is causing this on the surface. Instead, this is just poor asphalt maintenance. However, this is not the end of Zechariah's prophecy. Well, on the contrary, that's what the experts have been saying here in the last few decades. It really is surprising, and we are going to go down and see the science behind the great opening of the Mount of Olives.
Cia, facilmente erodida e que perde boa parte de sua resistência.
The main theory about the opening of the Mount of Olives says that this will happen through a great earthquake, not an opening. Not gradually over time through small cracks. It is believed that this will actually happen in a sudden and violent way through a great geological phenomenon. And what do scientists have to say about this theory? Scientists in the 80s conducted soil analyses here, and the result is surprising. The great Mount of Olives that rises up here on this side. What kind of rock is this entire mountain made of? Chalk? Imagine this gigantic mount, all made of chalk. That means the Mount of Olives is made up of weak and unstable rocks. Chalk is a very soft rock, easily eroded, and that loses much of its strength when it's wet. And the mount is made up of 2 layers of chalk. The lower layer is called ka'akule, which is a relatively hard and more resistant chalk, and the upper layer is called menuha. And it is made up of a very soft chalk, and it makes up most of the mount. And between these 2 layers, there is a very dangerous material, a marley-type chalk, which is highly plastic, very fragile, and weak. It actually becomes 4 times weaker when wet. Its behavior is very similar to that of clay. And that's why the scientist's conclusion is that the Mount of Olives is naturally unstable. And I'll leave the scientist's full research in English linked here in the description if you want to read it for yourselves. And really, it's something surprising that this large mountain, which rises more than 750 meters above sea level, is made of such fragile material. And what draws our attention even more is the contrast between the Mount of Olives and the old city of Jerusalem, which is right here in front of us. The city was built on the entire mount, which is made of a limestone that is extremely hard and resistant, and it is much more resistant to earthquakes. That's why, according to scientific articles, it's plausible that if a major earthquake happens, there will be significant damage to the Mount of Olives. Meanwhile, the old city might remain intact, but what is the likelihood of a major earthquake happening here in Jerusalem? And the answer is very high, because according to other scientific research, we are very close to tectonic faults. There is a gigantic tectonic fault throughout the entire Dead Sea region, approximately 30 kilometers from where we are. But even more surprising than this is that from this tectonic fault, a smaller fault branches out. In this direction, there is a fault running east to west, which passes just a little south of the Mount of Olives. As we can see on this map, the Mount of Olives is marked here, and this black line is the tectonic fault. Let's make it clear that it doesn't go through the middle of the Mount of Olives, but it passes very close by and it runs east to west. Just like the prophecy said, and I want you to notice something else on this map. Look at its colors. The different colors represent the different degrees of stability of the soil and the slopes. And if we look at the Mount of Olives, it's all marked in red. The areas in red represent maximum risk during seismic activities. So, what's the truth about the Mount of Olives opening up? Is it really cracking right now? And the answer is no. We have no geological indication here of the mountain breaking apart.